Okay. Hello. Hello, my podcast friends. Um, it's been a while. Okay, I'll just jump right into it. Um, so you know, it's been Corona, the last few weeks. I'm in the States now. Not that it really matters. Everybody's kind of sequestered indoors. Um, but I haven't had, I guess, the mental and emotional availability to deal with the podcasts, even though it's just for me. So never mind. Anyway, I thought I would. I've been talking to some people about what I'm going to talk about in the next 15 to 30 minutes. And I thought I'd try to kind of collect my thoughts and put them here so I'll have reference. Um, so the subject is change, crisis, and change, crises, because there's more than one, and changes because there's more than one. And I thought about how this change comes about with everything that's going on, and what I think people see and what I think people miss. So the way I look at this is that it's like a waterfall, or like some kind of leveraging machine. So there's changes that kind of cascade and actually become bigger and more significant and more impactful, uh, because they're built on the one that comes before them. And before I start, I'll disclaim and say that I'm basically talking out of my ass. So this is just like my opinion, but but I feel like it has some kind of merit. I feel like the structure that I'm describing is is a good description of what's happening, and even though some of it hasn't happened yet, and it's talking about the future and what we can expect. You know, and this will be corrected as we go along. But I feel like it's again a good description of the environment and the processes that are happening. But I'm not trying to kind of create a you know some kind of fundamental framework that can be used to evaluate situations. This is just about what's happening uh, right now with the world, right? So yeah, like always, I invite discourse, whether it's online or offline. But yeah, anybody who happens to uh, watch through this and feels that they disagree or that they have some other idea or opinion, I'd be really happy to hear. Um, okay, I'll jump into it. So um, I think the first layer of change, the first crisis that we've encountered is a physical one, meaning that there are physical changes. The physical impact is, it starts with the actual virus, right? The virus that affects people, makes them sick, specific kinds of people, right? So this disease does not select specifically for people who have less means, it does not select for any geography, and it does hit older people much more severely than young people. But there's an impact, right? There's an actual RNA sequence floating about, and you ingest, you don't ingest, but you inhale it, or you bring it into your body, mostly into your lungs, and and then it has some kind of physical effect on the body. And I feel I have to say again that it's not that COVID-19 or the coronavirus and the SARS family in general, but I'm not saying that they shouldn't be regarded as dangerous, and I'm not saying that they should be ignored. But I think that nobody has looked at what exactly the physical impact is in terms of people's health uh, under some kind of contextual umbrella that includes, the fact that people always die and die for all kinds of reasons. And so obviously a pandemic and an outbreak it feels very significant. And again, I'm trying to talk about the physical crisis and the physical change, but obviously it's about how it affects people's perception of danger and health and their personal fears, etc. So obviously the physical change automatically triggers, or the physical crisis automatically triggers at least some kind of emotional crisis and emotional change, which I'll go to in a bit because I think it's even that is bigger than the physical. But I want to first focus on the physical, right? So even though there's some kind of connections there, so physical change meaning that people start dying and uh, it's recognized that there's some kind of pathogen or some kind of agent that is contributing to their deaths, and then the next is isolation, right? So just people being separated, being put in their homes, and that already even on the physical level is a much bigger change because it affects more people, because it's a very significant effect. It's not death, you don't die, but your daily activities change. You don't go to work, the food you eat is different. Okay, so it says I disconnected and reconnected. Let me just give me a second here. One second. Did we? I don't even know if this went out or not. Now the video is jumpy. Not that it matters. But let's see. Okay. Hey, Grisha. Can you see me? I don't know. I think it disconnected. It was off the page. Well, let me know if you can see me or whatever. So now you're here, so you can actually, if you have shit to say, you can say. Let me know if you want to be on video, Grisha. I can put you on. So, so the physical change. So, like I said, it's significant. It's substantial. It's a change that is global. All right, everybody's feeling it. Different people feel different environments, different societies feel it differently, but it's definitely a significant change. So that's the first layer, right? That's like the as significant as it is. I think it's the least significant of the crises and changes I'm going to talk about. I think the much more significant crisis is and change, as like I said before, is the emotional crisis and change. It's the fact that people are dealing again. This is not just about the virus anymore, right? You see, people are being taken to the edge. Some people lose it. Some people, are shaky and problematic, and issues come out. And I think also some people are experiencing an emotional change in the way that they uh, consider their own lives, the lives of people around them, and their their social interactions, their professional work. So that there's an emotional wave that's going over people in the way that they perceive themselves and they perceive their place in society. Um, People are losing their jobs as well, which is again somewhere on the spectrum of between physical and emotional. Some people are working from home, so it's a different social structure for them to work in. Um, People who are business owners definitely have a very big emotional impact on this, and I think the emotional impact for society in general is definitely much bigger and much more significant than the physical one. Um, like I said, humans adapt physically easier, I think, that they do emotionally. So the body responds, but the the mind and our psyche usually either responds later or doesn't adjust, and you can see that. You can see that people are a lot of people are questioning that what's going to happen? Are things going to go back? Are we adapting to a new situation, a new kind of life? Um, and they're looking for answers and they're looking for some kind of stability. And it's pretty amazing. Again, the physical change is significant, but it would seem that society, which seemed rock solid a year ago, is having such trouble providing that stability, right? And nobody knows, and nobody's willing to stand behind some kind of framework for supporting this and for moving forward. Um, I think it also has a lot to do with and everything that I'm talking about has a lot to do with the huge change that we've gone through in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Um, the disappearance of media outlets that are newsworthy, um, of news organizations that are trying to provide their audience with an objective or a non-biased view of current events, and that's gone. There's no, like, I can't find one. Whether it's the CNN or Fox or the BBC or MSNBC, whatever you go, the motivation is no longer unbiased delivery of current events, but it's a more complex set of uh, assumptions and goals that is driven to a large extent by, if not monetary gain, some kind of populist approach. Now, how do I get people to come back and watch? How do I get people to reaffirm their decision to watch me and not somebody else? So, you're catering to your audience, and the way that we produce news is, again, this is a kind of like a known thing, and I'm not like coming up with theories, but the idea, the rise of what Trump called fake news, and the rise of Trump himself, sorry, um, is really based, I think, on this notion of news not being. Now YouTube is not receiving video. What the hell? I don't know. Um, yeah. So can you see me, Grisha? What you're saying is right. I don't think it's all about surveillance, but I think so that I'm getting there. This is definitely more significant, right? Um, can you see me? Why is it not receiving proper? What the hell? I'm broadcasting at 1600 kbs. I don't understand why it's not. The fuck. All right. So let me just hang on. Let me stop and start the stream. Okay. I think we're back. So yeah, I'll get to that point in a bit, Grisha. I think it's a good point. I think it's definitely something that's happening, but and I'd even say that this is not a new thing, right? Privacy is not doesn't really exist anymore. Privacy is like an illusion. But hang on, let me get there. I'll get there in a bit. So I'm saying, there's physical, there's emotional change. People are like, rethinking their lives, for better or for worse. People are confused. There's no uh, societal infrastructure that pushes people towards something that's clear. Um, it's individualism is at an all-time high, and everybody to themselves, and then obviously everything on top of that is just is added. It's added value. So okay, so I'll keep going to get to what you're talking about. So this physical and emotional change is then kind of a stepping stone to I think again a change, a crisis, and a change that's much bigger. That's economical, right? An economical change that's coming. Uh, Companies that laid off 40% of their workforce and sent another 30% to work from home, and another 20% on unpaid leave. And then they have the last 10% actually, doing work office or field office, whatever is essential. Um, they're not going to bring back the 40% they've let go, right? They're gonna when this normalizes. So first, the process that they're undergoing now is that, and maybe before I go into examples, I'll just say that uh, generally, in terms of the economic crisis and the economic change, we're seeing something that's very different than things that we've seen in the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades. I would say since the World War, probably. World War, especially the last few years, there was a mobilization of the economy towards one goal, and everything was on the table, right? And nothing was off, and everything was fair game because there was the idea of, oh, we have to save ourselves, on both sides, I guess, of the war effort. But since then, the economy has been like a machine that's running, right? The engine is connected to the gears, and it's pumping out force, uh, and there's this conversion of energy into force into product, and it keeps on going. And for most parts of the economy, this is it's a day by day thing, a week by week. It's like you don't have any buffer. We don't have a lot of buffer. So even though you want to keep on changing and keep on innovating and keep on evolving, the way you do this is by first of all regarding the machine and the system as something that needs to be protected. Again, I can give examples from software design, although it's very different. But it's you have a production environment, right? Production environment has to keep on going. You can't have production go down because you lose money, because you lose customers, because it's terrible. So production has to stay up. So when you develop new stuff, you develop it on a development environment, and then you test it on some kind of testing or staging environment, and you slowly move changes towards production, right? And when you deploy to production, when you actually deploy those changes, you need to make sure that A, you're not breaking anything, B, that you're not making too significant of a change so people go, oh, what's going on? So you want to really, the way that it works is that it's incremental change that passes through a lot of filters, a lot of barriers, a lot of challenges to make sure that it's the right change so that you don't fuck up the machine that's already running and making money. And the economy is like that, right? Whether it's the airlines or banks or whatever it is, they have a process, they have a machine that runs, and even though they want to be competitive and they want to evolve and they want to have innovation and bring in technology to improve their business, they do this incrementally and slowly and carefully. This is no longer the case, right? So the economy, big parts of it have stopped, right? The engine has been shut down. So yes, there's a shock, right? Suddenly there's no can hear the sound of the economic engine humming. Uh, things change because you don't have the same output. So everybody's scrambling to try and save whatever can be saved. But at the same time, there's an understanding that this is a crisis. That this actually means that there's a substantial difference in output and a substantial difference in production capacity. And everybody's losing money. Everybody across the board. At least now, they still do. Um, maybe short sellers, but never mind. I'm short buyers. I mean, um, but with that comes the realization that I think a lot of the big corporations are actually starting to catch on to, that this is a great opportunity to renovate, right? To really, change the cylinders on the engine, right? To kind of do overhaul for the system and to figure out a better way, a new way to do things, bring in innovation, bring in technology massively to try and figure out what can be done now to minimize the loss, to minimize the risk, and going forward, how can this change the way that business is being done? So, if I go back to my example from before of this company that's fired 40% of its workforce, they are working now to figure out how to keep business going without those 40%. What can be done? One of the things that are on the table and very clear is automation, right? Automation, autonomy, giving machines the opportunity to take over where people were before. And however successful or unsuccessful this process is, those companies are not going to hire back those 40%, right? They're going to hire back anything between 10 and 50, 60% of those 40%, right? They're going to they're going to become more efficient because that's the need of the hour. And once the crisis is over, they're going to stay efficient and not going to hire people just because they want to grow back. It's better to do it without people. It's really hard to fire people in other times, but now it became really easy, especially since for a lot of these companies, it's fire the people or go belly up, right? Not all companies are doing this. I know I've read that all Apple stores are closed, and all Apple store employees are at home getting full pay, which is great and nice, but not a lot of companies are where Apple is in terms of their fluidity and their ability to maintain their workforce. And I think even Apple might think over the next few weeks, few months, about what their Apple Store business looks like, and I'm sure there are avenues for a better online outlets for Apple to kind of sell their products. So I don't know, but definitely efficiency is significant in the way that it can be applied, or efficiency measures are significant in the way that it can be applied now. I talked about people working from home. So for many professions, this seems to actually be working better, at least now. Obviously, as people stay at home for longer, this is also going to change. The excitement is going to wear off and is going to be replaced by the realization that you can do the bare minimum and be home and do whatever you want. But at the same time, as this is evolving, the tools for this are evolving as well. And like I said before, technology and innovation play a big part, big role in this. Um, but this economic change that's coming with this is going to leave us with a very different industrial landscape, uh, where less people are going to be needed, where more automation is going to be inserted into these places, and not just automation, a lot of technology that was sidelined because it takes time, and because there's process, and because, like I said, the machine keeps running and keeps making money, and it needs to first and foremost be taken care of. This is, suddenly this technology is no longer on the sidelines, and it can be pushed full force. And I think that we will see over the next few months how this technology comes and really revolutionizes many aspects of the industry, and many aspects of the economical uh, uh, progress that we're seeing, as a global society. Um, so that's kind of that's the economic change, the economic crisis. And I think that actually leads to an even bigger, even more significant crisis and change, and that's a social change, right? And now I'm gonna touch briefly on what you wrote, Grisha. Um, so yes, I think first of all, yeah, I agree that it's not just about surveillance. It's about, just like technology comes in at the economical level, I think it also comes in at the societal level. I know that China, what I've read a few places, is that China is now tagging people, color tagging them based on their health status, right? And it's using every possible information outlet that it can to make this uh, uh, classification. Right? I think it's like three colors: green, yellow, and red. Red means, I guess, you're sick or dangerous, and green means you're good. Um, and it's using a lot of personal data for this, and it's using a lot of data that seemed to be very private not too long ago, even in China. And I think that the the hand is much freer now. The idea of public health and the idea of pandemic prevention kind of supersedes personal privacy and personal protection in most countries. Maybe the US is a little different, but not by much. And obviously, I think uh, it makes a lot of sense for them to keep this going on even after there's no more danger, because there's already a tool in place, and why not use it for other, control systems? So definitely, I think that's a thing. It's you talked about democracy, so this is, yeah, I think democracy is today, it has become just another tool, right? For the preservation and for the advancement of the enterprises, right? The enterprises that are kind of growing and becoming more and more powerful. And in most places in the world, they definitely have more power than the local government. Some governments are fighting back: China, Russia, US, France, Germany. There's like a few superpowers that are able to still sit at the table with those huge corporations, with those huge supranational entities. But they are, in some cases, they are dictating the kind of the course of things. Um, but I think, when I talk about social change, I think that looking at the economical change, looking at the fact that a lot of people are not going to have a way to sustain themselves, and economies, uh, macroeconomies, are going to have to figure out a way to integrate people into the machine, into this new version of economy, because otherwise the system breaks down, society breaks down. And again, economy today, I think, is largely based on having people work and get paid less than what they're worth, right? Otherwise, it makes no sense. So bring in people and give them money for some kind of labor that enables a machine to produce something, a product or a service. And then at the other end, have other people or the same people be consumers for that product or service, and have like a loop that goes around and increases revenue every time it loops around. And uh, I think this is breaking down not just because uh, people are on the consumer side are not going to have the spending power. People on the uh, uh, workforce side are not going to have enough employment. But another very significant part of this is that the means are becoming less of a challenge. The cost of materials, the cost of energy, uh, the way that products and services are being delivered and being made available for the public, these are really getting to a point where it's not that they're free, but it's that uh, there's less and less need to create a valid consumer uh, uh, market that is able to sustain the operation. So again, like I said, talking out my ass. I don't know where this is going. I definitely need to give this more thought. But if you look at the way, I know that three countries, Spain, I think, was the first one, have started talking about universal income, right? And the idea is, I think, uh, or the ideal description of this is a place where there's a society, and you can call it a country or a state or whatever it is, but a society that provides the necessities for sustenance, right? Basic income or universal income, meaning you don't need to work to receive spending power, so you can buy food and clothes and go to see a movie. Um, Basic or universal healthcare, so you don't need to take to worry about your health. Universal housing, so you can live somewhere and not live on the street, and universal education, uh, continuous education, right? So from age 0 till age 60, being able to receive many different kinds of education and training. And the way that this looks right now is that there are a lot of buffered, let's call them rich, resourceful, societal structures that can afford to do this and afford to do this for a substantial period of time, for 10, 15, 20 years, uh, during which society becomes, or this society becomes, um, a producer in its own right based on the way that the people within it are behaving and living their lives. And yes, it would mean that a big part of the population is going to, I don't know, be playing computer games, which again, I think is also something that can be looked at as a societal change. Because, computer games can actually be a part of some kind of societal change that is created through those games, through those means. I, I don't play a lot of games myself, but there's a huge difference between, in my mind at least, between Candy Crush and Minecraft. And in the sense that if you have a computer and that you can program to play the game with an algorithm. Candy Crush is a very easy game to write an algorithm for that would beat most humans. Minecraft, not so much, because there's no goal and because it's a game that focuses mostly on creativity and the ability for human beings to express themselves and their creativity through some kind of virtual device. And I think that's significant, right? So again, it's a simplistic example, but if you can think about people playing Minecraft, and you can think about Minecraft becoming a creative playground where people can express themselves, then yeah, you have 30, 40, 50% of the population doing something like that, or even 80 or 90, and the rest are actually working to connect that creativity into things that can be producers, right? Things that can tie into automated manufacturing that enables this society to thrive and be self-sustaining. Um, so yeah, I think I kind of touched on everything. Anyway, um, I said 15 to 30 minutes. I think we're hitting like 35 already. Um, I yeah, I definitely need to give this some more thought. But as an idea, I think that this progression, right, of a physical change that created an emotional and mental change that creates an economical change, or together create an economical change, and the economical change triggering a social change, a change that uh, really kind of shuffles the cards in terms of how we structure society, where we put the value on, what we put the value on, and what do we expect of our uh, fellow citizens or fellow social peers. And I think that's definitely on the change. And obviously, my personal belief is that the next 10 years are going to be uh, extremely significant in the way that technology can and probably will change our lives. Um, so I think that change kind of coincides with the way that technology is just coming into our lives and completely redoing it. Um, all right, I will probably do more of these more often. Uh, what's Ubi? I don't know what's Ubi. There will be no Ubi. What's Ubi? Major depopulation. Yeah, again, major depopulation for sure. I don't think major depopulation. It sounds like World War III. Major depopulation is something that just happens. I think you look at the population of horses in the world, right? So 120 years ago, it was 100 times bigger than what it is today. And once the internal combustion engine came to be, people didn't need horses anymore, mostly for transportation. Oh, universal basic income. Yeah, I don't think that it's again, the U.S. has sent out um, stimulus checks to everyone, about $2,000 or $1,500 each, right, to everyone. California is now providing stimulus for non-documented immigrants, right? Again, right, this is one time, but this can actually, the country like the U.S. can fund this every month for years before it. Yeah, humans are bred as well. Okay. Anyway, I'm just saying, the depopulation is definitely a thing that might happen, especially if it's true that horses are bred and people are born. It's a perspective, Grisha. Um, I think that if you look at the numbers, if you look at the number of offsprings that people have, you see that there's a direct correlation between their social and economical status and the rate of death of infant mortality and the amount of children that people have. Um, and again, I like I said, I don't claim to know where this is going. I'm just saying that, well, first of all, I do think that depopulation might be a thing. I think that if we figure out how to separate human experience from our physical bodies, or if we are able to create very strong, smart, and capable simulations of human beings on machines, then we won't need to have people born. They will be born on this substrate, and they're going to take much less energy to exist. And but that's a different conversation. Um, anyway, thank you, Grisha, for tuning in and listening. It was fun, and I guess I'll see you. I'll see you later. Um, and people are bred and horses are born. Peace.